Hello my friends, welcome back to my YouTube channel. Today we have a microphone that I purchased off Amazon. So if you saw my kind of clickbait of a title, you know what this video is about. I'm kind of scared now. So before we get into this video, I would like to take a moment to say that this video does have three purposes. The first purpose is to have a good laugh. The second purpose is to completely embarrass myself. And the third one is to share my improvement in my writing. This right here was not the first draft of Unmasked. It is actually more like probably the 15th. And that was like 2 years of work. The beginning being this fan fiction, pretty much. So I'm hoping that this video can encourage some of you guys who are just starting out not to be so hard on yourself. By the time that I wrote this first fan fiction, I had read one book on my free will. One book. And it definitely shows. I have 8 fan fictions here. So a little bit more information about how I got into fan fiction writing. We're gonna keep this very short and sweet. I found Pinterest and then I found Wattpad, and with my newfound love for reading, because I read one book on my free will and fell in love with it, I downloaded Wattpad. And me, who has an obsession with historical content, especially of the 18th century, I quickly discovered the Hamilton fan fictions and the Turn fan fictions, and decided that I wanted to write my own. I still crack up about this. I put on the cover, if I can find the cover, I'll put it on there. The Revolutionary War fanfic. We've come a long way, ladies and gents. I haven't read this in like, oh my goodness, I don't think I've read this in at least a year and a half, besides when I was putting it together. And to spare myself some of the pain, I did put the original characters into the story versus the fan fiction. It's not like that in all of these. In all these other ones, I'm going to expose myself. But the Revolutionary War fanfic, which I canonly called Give It All You Got, who let me title this book. So without further ado, we're going to read the first scene of this bad boy. He said what? Esther rolled her eyes as we were walking down the street. Emily, please. This is Emily talking. Okay. Restart. He said what? Esther rolled her eyes as we were walking down the street. Emily, please, don't make me tell you again for the third time, Esther said. I sounded very annoyed. I just want to make sure I got this straight. He said... She cut me off. William told me that General Carter told him that he was accepting women to join the army. Okay, I'm already wanting to quit. I have been waiting for this day for so long, I shouted. As spies. Thank you, Esther, for that clarification, because I was literally about to sue myself. To dress up like washwomen and spy on the British. Do you know what the penalty for spying is? Esther said in a worried tone. She knew that I had been wanting to join the revolution for some time now. She was worried that one day I would enlist as a man. Okay, so we can already see that my white room syndrome is big time. That is the only context that we get. This does not sound in any way, shape, or form like this is a conversation that would have taken place in the 18th century. I am very much against the line he was accepting women into the army. I think I could have worded that better. I can't believe I'm going to have a chance to help our cause, I exclaimed. Esther gave me a stern look. If you get caught, they will kill you. By hanging. And keep it down! William told me I could only tell you. I don't think Carter wants all of New York to hear of his plans, she snapped. I rolled my eyes as she lectured me. Then, all of a sudden, she changed the subject. Are you going to the ball tonight? Dancing is not really my thing. We're gonna scroll down. So by this time, William is now in the scene. I don't know, where the heck is Nathan? Nathan isn't here. Where's Nathan? Why the heck is James speaking in French? He wasn't even a French character. Let's go find James. I followed. It did not take long to find them. They're at the ball by now, just so you know. Bonjour, mon ami, he said with a smile. Hi, I replied. Esther waved. Hello, ladies, James said. He offered me his arm and led me away from the group. Man, James kind of just pulls her. Come with me. William informed me that you were going to enlist as a spy. Looks like we will both be in the British camp. Really? I did not know you were a spy, I whispered. I did not want everyone to hear our conversation. It could get James into a lot of trouble. Well, that's kind of the point, James said with a giggle. Why the heck did he giggle? Why did he giggle? Now she's giggling. Jesus help us. Then Jacob and Esther came over with another young man. This is Pierce. Emily, I would like to introduce you to Nathan Pierce, Jacob said, turning to Nathan. He is a new aide-de-camp for the general, excellent on the battlefield. I'm honestly surprised that he is still alive. Hey Nathan, this is a young lady Will and I were telling you about, James said, while playfully nudging me. Wait, that was Emily? Oh my gosh, okay, this is cringy, we're moving on. The internal conflict is not here at all, that's one thing. I have no idea where on earth Caroline is. I don't know if she was a character, and I have no idea where these kids' parents are. I'm scrolling down to the juicy stuff. We're gonna get confused because I have no idea what's happening. Wait, Emily's point of view. Guys, I told this through everyone's point of view. Okay, so this was November 2018 to February 2019, so I'm gonna scroll down. I'm gonna see if I got any better writing those 44,000 words. Oh, this is Jacob's point of view. Still Brant? I asked as William came out of our tent. He nodded. Aiden has been asleep since yesterday night. It's been about 24 hours. Luckily, General Carter is going to let him stay here until William gets word back from Esther. I don't know what's going on here. Bless his heart, I mumble under my breath. He hasn't slept in a week. I'm sure he's exhausted, William replied. He looked as if he were in deep thought about something. I was as well. It was still a little light outside, and I have been needing to speak with Emily about Abatha. Okay, so this is interesting. Okay, so I didn't really write anything else. Like, there's a few more paragraphs, but nothing really happens. So it did get a little bit better. The internal thought of explaining how he was feeling and also how William looked. At least I said there's still a little light outside, and I explained a little bit clearer through this. So yeah, I see a little bit of improvement. Not very much. Okay, so now we are getting into something that I only recently took down off of Wattpad. I started writing this in December of 2018, and I finished this March of 2019. So similar time as to when I was writing Give It All You Got. It's the first book in what was going to be a 5-book series, but I stopped writing it. Back to what I call the Little Black Box series. This is an X-reader, so you have Yen, as we all dub her the title. She is living in New York City when she finds a black box in the alleyway and is transported back to the 18th century where she meets some lovable yet familiar characters from the Hamilton fandom. It was an X-reader, but you didn't know who the X-reader was for until literally the end of the book. I'm very glad I wrote this. I think the overall story, golden. So considering that this was written around the same time as Give It All You Got was, I'm gonna go ahead and skip this. But so what happens at the end of this, just so you can understand a little bit better what's going on. She goes to the 18th century. She falls in love with John Lawrence. And then she is shot. And so she died, and this black box came back and took her back to the 21st century. So now, this right here is March 2019 to June 2019, so about 2 months. Wakes up and she's back in her New York City apartment. Let's read the first chapter, shall we? The black dots began to get bigger, completely blocking my vision. The box in my pocket began to move, and I began to feel myself drift off. A bright light started to shine around me. As it cleared, I was sitting back in the alley, in the streets of New York City. The box was in my hands. Everything looked just as it did when I left. No, I said, opening the box, but nothing happened. I want to go back, I cried. I kept opening and closing the box, hoping something would happen, but to my disappointment, nothing did. I felt my side. There was no wound, only a scar. I opened my phone to see the same date and same time as it was when I left. Was it a vision? I asked myself. I felt so real. I stood up and began to make my way to my apartment building. I took the elevator and went into my room. I opened it to see my roommate was no longer there. I walked over to the kitchen to see a note. Yen, I have decided you are a waste of my time and it's time to move on. I packed all my stuff that I want and left the rest here. Maybe you can sell it and use the money to help pay the rent. No. Because I apparently didn't help at all. See you on the streets when you get kicked out of your apartment, and don't come running to me. Roommate's name. P.S. I took some of the money out of the safe to pay for a hotel room. Girl, this roommate be glad she gone, ma'am. As I was reading, I heard a voice. I quickly stood up and walked into the kitchen. I don't know what's going on, but I am ready to karate kick someone if necessary. Hello? I heard a familiar voice shout. Then John popped out from around the corner. Hello? He was in his military uniform and his hair with his hair falling out of its ponytail. "John?" I asked as he turned and looked at me. I ran over to him and practically tackled him in a hug. We hugged for a very long time. He refused to let go, but in all honesty, I didn't want to either. Man, was I happy to see him, even though it had only been a few hours since I had seen him. Then it clicked. "What are you doing here?" Oh my goodness, guys. Okay, so it's gotten a lot better. It's gotten a lot better. I think my storytelling overall skills, it's an improvement. Now, okay, we're gonna spend some time on this book. There's just some good quality humor in this, if I remember correctly. Maybe I just thought I was funny. Okay, so all the people start showing up. I think we've got... Who all came up? I think it was pretty much everyone in the musical. Yen, James came into my room. "Yes," I hummed in reply. "I think we have a little bit of a problem," James said nervously. "A little bit," I could hear Jefferson shout from the other room. "We have a person in royal garments sleeping in the bathtub." That wasn't that funny, okay? It wasn't that funny. "Stop, Jefferson! You're not helping. The poor guy is scared to death," I could hear Aaron shout. "Oh, and we found a man hiding in the closet. He is hyperventilating at the moment." If all this chaos is happening in this tiny New York City apartment, why can she not hear it? I walked into the room with Alexander at my tail. I saw a small blonde-headed man curled up in the corner. Aaron was trying to calm him down as Thomas was freaking out. "Alexander, King George is in the bathtub," Thomas said, pointing to the bathroom. Anywho, Alexander had his eyes on the small man in the corner. "Seabury? Samuel Seabury?" Alexander asked. The man shot up and let out a high-pitched scream. We all covered our ears. Do they not get it?
I have neighbors.
"Please go away," he shouted with a sharp British accent. "I've seen enough of you in one lifetime. I don't want to see you in this one." We're not going to read any more of this because I'll sit here and read this entire thing because I think it's funny. And my sense of humor has not changed at all since I was 14. Okay, so now we have book 3 in the Little Black Box trilogy, which was the last book I actually completed. And this book, even though I hate it as in none of this ever needed to happen for the overall story of the series to continue, this was the first book I think I wrote with the intention of giving a message through the story. So it wasn't just for entertainment, it was something that I wanted the reader to get out of it. So I learned a lot through that. Main plot of it is, I don't know how in 10 years John got into a NASA thing and learned all that. It's fan fiction, who cares? That part's cringy.
He went missing, he came back, he's perfectly fine. Wifey, your name, is confused and thought he was dead and had moved on. Not had moved on, she still struggled with it, obviously, but she was moving on, things were finally going good, and then all of a sudden he just shows back up and she's excited, but she doesn't understand why he kept it hush-hush all the time.
So this story was about family and trying to encourage one another to listen to the other side of the story. So June 2019 to September 2019. Let me try to find something I can read from it that's hopefully not terrible. In the book before, I didn't read an excerpt from this, but they rented a green minivan, and this thing was ugly. Or no, it was a van. It wasn't a minivan, it was a legit van. And they went cross-country. And so it's making its appearance 10 years later in the timeline, but in book 3, as Thomas has decided that he was going to track it down and buy it, and I'm just going to read it. The inside looked familiar, but this time it had much more duct tape over the seats, attempting to cover up the rips, and it smelled like a mixture of old McDonald's chicken nuggets and cigarette smoke. I took a seat in between John and Aaron. My kids were in the very last row. I looked at John and gave him a smile. He gave me a half-hearted smile back. I could tell the last place he wanted to be wasn't here. He looked a bit better, but still didn't look fully like himself. I think he just got out of the hospital or something. Something happened. We don't need to talk about that. And then Nellie, George, and Junior are her kids. "It smells weird in here," Nellie announced, pinching her nose. "Don't worry, you'll get used to it," Thomas replied, turning the key to start the engine. It made a weird sound, and he tried multiple times before it actually started. He began pulling out of the driveway, and all I could hear were the tires squeaking. "How much did you pay for this hunk of junk?" Alexander asked. "Too much," Thomas replied. Dad, who was sitting in Washington, they call him Dad now, Dad, who was sitting in the front with him, turned around and gave us a concerned look. "Uncle Tommy, does it squeak all the time?" Nellie asked. "Yes, darling, it's music to my ears," Thomas replied. "We need to have you listen to some better music," James informed. "I agree, maybe some gospel hymns," Samuel suggested. No, thank you. If I listen to Amazing Grace on the piano one more time, I will move out, James exclaimed. I smiled. We often joked about their decision to rent a house together. Since James is a lawyer and Samuel a minister, we always say, you certainly, no matter how hard you try, can separate church and state. Amarillo by Morning, up from San Antone. Everything I got is just what I got on. I'm not about to sing that, but Alexander is singing it. And if I hear Amarillo by Morning one more time, I will move out, Aaron mumbled. Oh, I've got one, George, the kid George, announced. Nellie joined in. Everyone groaned as the song continued. Well, besides Dad. He joined in like all cool grandpas do. Once it was finished, we all sighed until George exclaimed, "Again! How about we play a game?" His Majesty suggested. Okay, we do not need to go into the I Spy game. Oh my gosh, they all went to Monticello and Mount Vernon. We don't need to relive this. Okay. I had another thing that I was going to read that took place between September 2019 and December 2019, but we're not going to do that because if The Stars Told Time ended September 2019, this video is getting long. We're just going to go straight to March of 2020. This was a fan fiction of all the Founding Father characters that I could think of. This doesn't even fit in a fandom thing. This is just all of them in high school. And I don't know why the heck I wrote this. And I don't understand why I thought it was a good idea. But we're going to read the most iconic paragraph that I have sent to a few people. I'm very ashamed of it. I don't know why on earth I wrote it. This is the only thing I feel like I need to read out of this thing. Now listen up, he said, bending down slightly so he could be my size. This was a motion everyone did, which secretly annoyed me. It was a constant reminder that I was shorter than the average third grader. Walk with confidence. This is going to be the worst year of your life, but just remember that the most bones will heal even if they are snapped in half. Don't make eye contact with anyone, especially seniors. And just remember that mom is watching over you from heaven. And if anyone messes with her, Alex, they will face her wrath. And even if you do get into some trouble, she'll most likely accept you with open arms. But if you do go to jail, don't eat the pizza pockets. You would much rather starve. And try to make the most of it. If you want to smoke something, I'm not going to hold it against you. I hesitantly nodded, now terrified. I already made up in my mind that I'm not smoking anything, unlike James, who was addicted to cigarettes. Listen, you're talking to a kid who is scared of the dark and still believes monsters are going to bite their feet if they're not under the covers. High school sounds like hell. So I didn't get very far into this. Probably going to cut that out. Okay, we're going to return back to the Little Black Box series. So this is 2 years later. We're now at the 3 years later point, and if I can find something that I've written recently, maybe y'all can get a sneak peek of book 3. Stick around till the end if you want a sneak peek of book 3. So I didn't finish this book. Was the last thing I wrote in 2020. So I was writing this while Unmasked was being edited, which, oh my gosh, that's crazy. I played around with a lot of weird dynamics in it. I would change a lot that I've done about it. I probably wouldn't go into John's point of view at all if I could rewrite this, but we are going to read a little bit from John's point of view. We're scrolling down all the way to this, and I'm not giving you any context as to what's going on. We're looking at the quality of the book. The internal conflict in this book is genius, if I do say so myself. There's a lot going on. It's a lot for the characters to navigate. It's kind of like, how on earth are you going to get yourself out of this situation? Let's read some of this juicy internal conflict. Sleep wouldn't come for neither of us, so we refreshed for the morning. That went by in a flash, and before I knew it, I was back at NASA, seeing cameras in my face, giving thumbs up and waving, giving motivational speeches to the crowd, and masking my true feelings with a fake smile. Brian entered the spacecraft first, and I almost wanted to shout at him, tell him not to. Tell him not to be so excited, tell him to call his wife one more time, because it would be the last time. But that was cruel, and would be taken as a joke, and would be an echoed sentiment through the country, and that would lead to conspiracy theories. All they do is confuse people, for sometimes I think it's better to live a lie. My entire life was a lie, and if it wasn't, I would be dead. And changing history wasn't an option, no matter how I wanted to scream it in his face. The soldier in me was supposed to save the lives of my comrades, not take them. There was no changing time. Before I knew it, I was feeling the rockets blast off and pushed my lungs to the front of my chest, fighting against the pressure, locking my eyes shut. But the darkness of the shuttle was quickly overcome by a bright light, which seemed to blind me. My eyes watered as the fresh scent of grass filled my lungs, and I forced my eyes open, seeing a clear blue sky. That cursed box. That little black box. I can't tell if that was awful or if that was halfway decent. I've been filming for an hour now. That was a wild ride, if I do say so myself. Now, before I read aloud a quick scene from, I just wanted to say thank you so much for sticking to the end of this video if you did. I know it's kind of a hot mess, but I know a lot of people wanted to see some of the old fan fiction and some of the old writing that I had done. Hopefully that encourages you, and knowing that you're always improving. Your first book is not going to be your best book. The first fan fiction is not going to be the best fan fiction. The beginnings aren't bad. And I know people are like, your writing sucks, and here is why. It's always great to look at it from a constructive criticism standpoint, but not from a degrading standpoint. That was funny to read. There were a lot of things that just made me cringe. And it was bad writing, but it wasn't bad. It was amateur writing. It was writing from someone who hasn't perfected the craft at all. It was from someone who hasn't read anything. But the beginning is beautiful, and you should definitely start writing if you want to, if you have a desire for it. Try it out. And if you are writing and you feel discouraged by feedback, it's written, it's done, did. You're going to improve from here on out. Take the constructive criticism, sift through it, take what applies to you, and write your story. Because it's great, and because you're brilliant. If you want to see more of my videos, go ahead and click the subscribe button and turn on the bell so you get notified when I post a new video. And if you enjoyed this video, go ahead and give it a big thumbs up. Comment down below, did you write fan fiction? Now, on to book 3's excerpt. Bye! The proof copy. Do you house prisoners? She asked one soldier who talked of how he was a prisoner of war a few months back. Not many. Only 20 or so. Where are they? Can show you if you like. She smiled. Of course he'd want to show her. It was meant to be comforting. The soldier took her into the hold. She pushed past barrels of gunpowder and excused herself as she passed a few guards. Then she saw them. Most just sat on the floor, their eyes locked with the planks. Others spared her a glance as she tried to offer a smile. She examined their faces, hoping to recognize at least one. They were all strangers. She knew if she didn't know them, they didn't know her. The thought offered a small amount of security in the face of uncertainty, for no one would be blowing her cover. But nothing could ease the disappointment at not seeing one familiar face. James was right.